This test. Thanks. Who knows about Otley 2030 already? Is everybody aware?
I've heard of it, but I don't really understand what it is.
Okay, well, this is a real good starting point then. So just respecting the fact that everybody's coming at this from different, starting points. And if you feel like it's a little bit patronizing because you already know the history, please bear with us because we're just offering it to get people up to speed. And then we'll start talking about the future a bit. And it might be that Mick jumps in at some point. I'm going to just change Charlotte to Mick because, oh no, maybe Andrew can change Charlotte to Mick, just so we know it's Mick. So perhaps Mick will jump in at some point to amplify anything that Andrew's saying about the history and how Otley 2030 has got to this point. And just from my perspective, I work for Climate Action Leeds, which is a Leeds-based, how would you describe it? It's like an organizing network to do a citywide climate action project across the city for the next 5 years. And what our aim is, not just to connect up climate action in different parts of the city, but also to set up 8 different climate action hubs in different neighborhoods. So at the moment, the first 4 are Otley, Beeston, Seacroft, and Garforth, and they've been chosen for their specifically very different demographics. So Otley represents a small semi-rural market town. Garforth represents a post-mining town. Seacroft is much like a place with a lot of council housing, and Beeston is an inner city area. So to investigate what the different approaches could be to help support future climate action hubs, the Climate Action Leeds project has chosen very different demographics and very different areas to try and set these first 4 hubs up in. So a little bit of it is learning by doing, and there are development workers working on each hub. So I work for Otley. My role is specifically allied to the whole Otley area, the whole Otley town area. Colleague Sue works in Seacroft. Another colleague, Joy, works in Garforth, and another colleague, Beth, works in Beeston. So together, we're kind of linking up people from all across the city to try and take climate action together and also do it in a community-focused way. And that doesn't just mean helping the community, but it also means engaging with people who live locally to help them make the decisions and kind of call the shots on how things are developed. So yeah, for me, that's what the kind of purpose of Climate Action Leeds is to link up climate action across the whole city so it can have more impact than if it was just happening in isolated pockets. And working with Otley has been really great because they've already been organizing for maybe 2 years now. So there's a lot of stuff already going on, and have a lot of respect for the projects which Otley 2030 have already completed or are already doing. And yeah, just a pleasure to meet you all. And I'll hand over to Andrew now to maybe do a bit of history about the history of Otley 2030 and how we got to this point in time now.
Thank you, Phil. Okay. Yeah, Otley 2030 was set up 2 years ago now by a couple of, well, initially it was a couple of councillors. I think Mick and Ray Georgeson were 2 of the founding members, who basically set up a meeting for any local citizens who were interested in climate action in the town. About 40 people turned up to that first meeting. And on the back of that, we decided to develop Otley 2030. And we've come this far, 2 years. We've done loads of incredible things, but we're hoping to take it to the next step and involve a much wider range of the community. Yeah, so like I said, the first meeting, can you all see my screen share now?
Yeah.
The first meeting was in the core, and organised by a couple of councillors, Mick and Ray. But since then, we've had like a core interim committee of about 10, 12 people who've been kind of running a lot of the events and doing all the formal documentation and getting us to kind of charitable status. But our remit is essentially the same as what Phil just described for Climate Action Leeds, but on a smaller town-wide scale rather than a city scale. So just hopefully by 2030, getting Otley to be a carbon neutral, sustainable town, but doing that in a just way that involves the whole community and brings everybody along for the ride, because often a lot of these groups do attract the same kind of people and don't reach the people who probably need these kind of changes. So we want to get everybody involved, which I'll talk about how we're going to do that in a minute, but we'll just go through a bit of the history of things first. So what we do and what we've done So there are the obvious kind of green things like solar and sustainable energy. We've got a sister organization, kind of the commercial arm of Otley 2030 called Otley Energy, which has looked at how we can retrofit houses to make them sustainable and use next to no energy. They've been working with different groups all around the country, and they're now working with Leeds City Council to look at how they can do it in neighbourhoods in Otley. They've succeeded in getting solar on Prince Henry's, the library, as you can see here, and I think it's 3 primary schools now. So they've actually made real tangible differences in the town working together with us. The veg box has been a huge success. When the pandemic hit, we obviously couldn't meet anymore, and it kind of hit our operations, and we thought, what can we do to help? And there are food boxes in town, but nothing that was supplying fresh fruit and veg for the people who really needed it. So we set up a veg box, did a fundraiser. We've raised, I think it's about £700 a delivery it costs, and we've done 5 or 6 deliveries now. So it's all from public donations, and we've managed to, with the help of people from the marketplace, local supermarkets, we've managed to deliver, I think, about 140 veg boxes in every school holiday. So that's been a great thing. We've set up the Otley Nature Network, because there's loads of beautiful natural places in Otley and loads of nature groups, but there wasn't any real joined up thinking. So they've got loads of great projects going. Like we're going to do, one of the key ones we're looking at is people's gardens. So a lot of people are just tarmacking over the gardens or putting astroturf down, and looking at, I think we've got a target of by 2030 having 90% of gardens in Otley with at least 3 wildlife features, one for shade, one for food, and one for water for wildlife. And yeah, the retrofit goes back into the Otley Energy thing. So that's just a taste. There's a few other things that we could talk about, but yeah, this kind of stuff we're doing already. Got a huge social media presence. We've got somebody called Claire, who has worked for Country File on Top of the Pops with the BBC. She's doing all our social media stuff. We've worked with the University of Leeds to help us on that as well. They've been with a media society. We've got some campaigns going like Build Back Better. We've drove that. We've engaged with Angels of Youth to get some youth engagement, and we have currently got some money from the Quakers to get the UN Sustainable Development curriculum in schools. We're going to train 1 teacher in every school in the town. So every school will have that resource where that teacher can look at the curriculum in the school and find out how it all ties into climate change and sustainable development in a cross-curricular way. Community development, like I said, we're looking to reach more people, which I'll talk about after Phil's spoken again in a minute. We've made contacts with groups all around Wharfdale, Yorkshire, around the country. It's been a really great experience. It's brought together a lot of people from all different backgrounds. We're working with loads of different companies and different charities. Yeah, it needs to be a real joined up approach if we're going to do this. That's Phil, Climate Emergency Community Action Programme, which is now Climate Action Lead. So that slide needs changing. Probably, I don't know if you guys have got a new logo yet, but we need to update that. One thing we've been using is the One Planet Living Network. So there are the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which are 17 different goals about how to reach a sustainable future. And they're quite complicated, but there's another organization called Bioregional, which have kind of broken them down into 10 simple stages. And we are kind of organizing our working groups around these at the moment. And using, every time we make a decision, we're kind of referring back to which ones of these it uses and how we can use them to develop our town going forward. So they're all pretty straightforward: health and happiness, equity and local economy. We'll share that with you at a later stage. Why we do it, you probably know why we do it, or you wouldn't be here. There's a big biodiversity crisis, wildfires, extreme weather events. This is Otley, flooding because of the increased rainfall from climate change, and the fact that there's no trees up the valley, so water's just flooding off and coming down the valley. But we do it because we think there's hope for the future, and there's loads of different things going on. that give us hope, like people doing community gardens, reintroduction of well, extinct animals in this country, like the beaver. The kids deserve a chance at a clean, healthy planet. This is a tribe in the Amazon that we've been supporting called the Pinua, who've been affected very, very harshly by climate change. So we've been supporting them financially and sending them out exercise books and things. This is a project in Scotland where they're changing an old timber operation into a native forest again, which I've been to a few times. Sorry, this one's in the Lake District. There's another one in Scotland I've been to. So yeah, loads of interesting stuff going on, and that's the kind of an idea of the things we want to bring to Otley, or are bringing to Otley, of course, as well. We've got our own community allotment, which Lynn is very much involved in. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment. Pass back to Phil.
Thanks, Andrew. So one of the things that I've been supporting Otley with at the moment is getting into a position where they have a locally supported, community represented steering group. And the reason for doing that is because the Climate Action Leads program is actually supported by the National Lottery. And that means that every year, Otley 2030 can receive support to run a climate action hub in Otley. And that'll include money to pay a development worker for 2 days a week. So there's actually some resource time, which is really helpful because it means there's somebody who's actually paid to focus on bringing groups together and doing this kind of knitting and weaving of the climate action projects in Otley. So things actually continue to happen because it's actually somebody's job. And then also some money to run the centre itself. And that might include a bit of money for activities or paying the rent on a building. So there could be like a hub in the town where people can come in and learn about climate action issues or learn how to, decarbonize their lifestyle. So actually, supporting the opening of a centre in Otley. And there are a few different kind of stepping stones that Otley has to kind of get on before they can draw down the money. And the first one is having a group of members who help to vote on decisions that are made by the organization. And that wouldn't just be passive members, that would be active members as well. So it might include people who are already on the steering committee, and then also people who help to run the working groups and people who participate as volunteers in the working groups. So all of those roles are voluntary, but they're all really meaningful. And then the other thing that they have to do is set up an organization which is, community run, and that will involve getting a CIO, which is a community incorporated organization or charitable incorporated organization set up. It's kind of like a charity, but it's a bit of a simpler structure. And that enables them to apply for funding and also receive the money from Climate Action Leads so that they can employ the development worker. So this is a really important step for Otley because it doesn't just, at the moment, I'd say, Andrew, would you agree that most of the projects have been kind of driven by the members of the steering group?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So at the moment, the steering group includes Andrew, Mick, who else is on there? Andy Boyle.
Yeah. Shannon, Anita,
yeah.
Martin, Sarah.
Yeah, that's right. So there are about 8 members who meet regularly to kind of keep Otley 2030 ticking over. And I think what the case is that it's ready to accept more people into support with the projects that are running, because there are a lot of projects now between the VegBox scheme, the Solar for Schools, the Otley Nature Network. These projects they all take a lot of time, and they're also all great opportunities for people to get involved in. So what Otley 2030 is seeking to do is kind of widen the circle of people who are helping to drive things forward. And that means setting up working groups, which are going to focus on all of the different projects so they can kind of have a specific focus and have a little team of people who are specifically working on that one thing, as opposed to it all falling on the laps of the steering committee. So yeah, this is quite exciting, actually. So I suppose you could say we're also growing the membership, right? So this is an opportunity to really grow the membership of Otley 2030. So it's not just people who like the Facebook page, but it's also people who kind of have agreed to be a member for a year, and then they get the opportunity to help make decisions. And that might include making decisions about who would be the trustees of the forthcoming charity, and different things like what projects to focus on, what's interesting, what's engaging. So lots of members making many decisions about the direction that Otley 2030 could go in the future. So that's the aspiration. The goal is to engage lots of people. And I think it's pretty well accepted that if you want to engage lots of people, then you have to start welcoming people in to take responsibility for some different things. So this is kind of the start of a process of seeing who'd like to either become involved as a volunteer in one of these new working groups, or see who would like to become involved to help maybe a bit more and help to manage one of the working groups. And that wouldn't mean doing it all on your own. So the aspiration is that there'd be 2 people who'd be responsible for each working group, so you can kind of share the responsibility. Yeah, so ultimately the goal is that there would be, I suppose, overlapping working groups which are sharing the responsibility for different areas like food, transport, housing, education, nature and wildlife. Are there any other working groups that are operating at the moment, Andrew, which I can't think of?
There's more project-based ones like the Festival of Kindness. So
yeah,
I think that's a good one that definitely needs some work on.
Yeah, so really lots of opportunities for people to get involved in lots of different things at a level which feels appropriate for the individual. So it wouldn't be that you'd be bound into a role that you had to give 2 or 3 hours a week, but it'd be an opportunity to kind of take part in the future of Otley 2030 and really help support Otley towards getting to that true carbon zero goal that they've set for the next 10 years. And the shape of this, it doesn't want to be a typical hierarchy, and that's why we want to have lots of working groups, and I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with a bit of hierarchy, because actually it helps things, helps get things done. But working groups tend to be more self-organizing, and there wants to be a culture of self-organization, so that if a group is working for, say a group is working on the Festival of Kindness, it'd be great if that group can feel like it can make decisions on its own without having to constantly refer back to the steering committee. So that takes the burden off the committee for making small decisions, and it helps the group feel like they've really got ownership over the project and ownership over the future of what's going on. And that kind of looks a bit more like this. So yeah, many different ways to get involved. And if you think that Otley 2030 could be perceived as the organization, the big circle, then within that, there are lots of different teams or working groups. And each of those blue dots represents a role. So sometimes people might just have a role which is unique and individual. It could be that somebody just has the role of communicating with, somebody just has the role of being like a social media poster. That could just be like one single role, but that might combine into a working team which does things like communications, or works on the Festival of Kindness, or works on the Connecting with Schools project. So what we're aspiring is that there be a bunch of different working groups within this one larger circle, which is the organization. So just to give it a bit of an image. So it's not like a pyramid. It's more like a collection of working groups within one larger circle, which is the organization. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Phil. Yeah, another important aspect of this at the moment is, like I said before a few times in my talk, about reaching the wider community. Starting in April, we undertook a project that was sponsored by Otley Town Council. It's called Connecting. It is literally called Connecting Community. They gave us some money which pays for 2 days a week of my work and 2 days a week of a communications coordinator, which is Claire, who's doing an incredible job. And we're doing something similar to the Leeds Big Climate Conversation, which is going out to the wider community, finding out what they feel about climate change and what they want Otley to look like in 2030. This 6-month project is obviously split into different phases. The current phase is we're working out the methodology and how we're going to actually engage people. Second stage, we're going to go out there and start meeting people, find out, do surveys, find out what they want, where they want it, when they want it, and how they would like to get involved. And then third stage is putting that into deliverables, how we can deliver it by 2030 and get more volunteers and get more group members and leaders. So we're currently on with that. We're working really hard to get to the stage we're at now. We've been kind of sideswiped by the East of Otley development. A lot of the kind of committee and key members in Otley 2030 set up another group called East of Otley Action Group, which is looking at how we can get that done sustainably, which is a big challenge because there's 3,700 pages worth of documents to read for that. So that's been a bit of a distraction, but we're also working hard on that and the connecting community. So there's a lot going on. But coming back to what we're doing now, we're going to have a check-in, and we're going to put you in breakout rooms, which Phil's just going to explain to you.
Yeah, so this is super simple, because what we'd love to do is just hear a little bit from people about why the invitation to get involved in Otley 2030 was interesting in the first place. But before we ask people to speak about that, we're going to invite you into pairs, so groups of 2, just to have a chat about why was it that you responded to the invitation and came to the call this evening. So what is it that kind of picked up your interest and made it interesting for you to come tonight? And we'll probably just be in there for 5 minutes. So go into the breakout room. Andrew might organize the breakout rooms because I'm not the host for this meeting. And yeah, we'll invite you back at 8:10 and just hear back a couple of kind of expressions of what was it that was interesting about getting involved with Otley 2030, and then we'll move into the next part.
Okay, so we're going to put you in groups of 2. There's 7 people, so one will have 3 people. Okay, we'll see you in 5 minutes.
Perfect timing. So folks, the whole idea there was just to meet maybe people who you hadn't met before, or maybe have a chat with somebody who you had, and just have a chance in a small group to maybe articulate what was interesting about this before offering it back into the big group. So what were some of the reasons why people have chosen to respond to this invitation? Be nice to hear.
I can start. Yeah, I think one of the big ones that seemed to inspire Sue, who I spoke to in particular, was the whole East of Otley thing. I think was a bit of a trigger there. You know, I think there's many people who do their own thing within their home, you know, and try and be kind of sustainable in their own way of living. But I think this East of Otley's kind of triggered people to think a bit wider and think, you know what, actually, there's a bigger thing that needs to happen here that we need to try and get involved in. So I think that was a big part of it.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's really helpful to hear. And was that your reason for joining? Because you were inspired by the East of Otley and it made you think a bit bigger than just doing stuff in your own home?
No, that was what Sue shared with me. For me, it was a little bit different. I'm particularly interested in trying to encourage the use of sharing of stuff, people sharing their items with other people to avoid other people buying them. So I'm on a journey to try and get a library of things up and running in Otley at some point in time. That's my goal. I'm working with one in Headingley at the moment, which should be up and running by the end of next month, and then hopefully Otley will shortly follow that at some point.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I'm not going to share for you, Lynn, but if you want to speak, please do.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that I love the idea of that library of things. My background is libraries, and it's something that's been well, no pun intended, but toyed with. Toy libraries as well were a great idea that just Bradford never managed to get off the ground. But I think, you know, the idea of, you know, who needs to have it? Everybody needs to have an electric drill. Does everybody really need to have one? You know, we hardly ever use them. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But yes, mine was basically to find out more, to meet people, and because I'm interested in doing some practical things to help around Otley.
Nice, thanks. What were other folks thinking?
For myself, I was thinking Otley's a great community, and I would like to get more involved with Otley as a larger community, especially coming out of the pandemic. I've joined my eldest daughter, she's just started at Westgate Primary School, and I'm just in the process of starting a crisp packet recycling program there in conjunction with CPP Leeds and Hidden Homeless. So we collect the crisp packets and make blankets out of them for the homeless to be distributed around Leeds. And I've got other ideas too, but I didn't want to start doing these things and find we're actually duplicating anything. And knowing what Otley 2030 is already planning, organizing, or even doing, and then see how we can do as much as possible.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you.
That's great, Michelle, because one thing Otley 2030 wants to be is an umbrella organisation that gives people the freedom to do things. We don't want to take control of everything, but we also want to make sure we don't duplicate anything. So it just gives people that license and possibly the ability to talk to people like Phil who've got more experience to learn and then get these things like a library of things or whatever into action. So it's good to hear. Sorry, Phil.
No, I think it's good to say that, because Otley 2030 really does want to weave lots of different people and groups together, doesn't it? It doesn't want to control everything. It wants to bring people together. So it's good to say. What about you, Andrea? What caused you to say yes to coming tonight, even though your mother has had an unfortunate stroke?
Believe me, it's a great relief to come here after spending all day at my mum's. Not that she's an awful person, but I've lived here a while, and I've not to sound like Liam Neeson, but I have a very diverse set of skills that hopefully I can put to some use. And I'm very interested in wildlife and in nature. I've got a strong media background, an education background. I've worked for charities, and I've just become more passionate recently about sustainability and exploring more about that. Hence, going down to do the course at CAT, and came back from there really inspired, thinking we need to be a biosphere. We need a UNESCO status biosphere in Otley. That's what we should be. There's no point in, go large or go home. There's no point, you will spend as much effort doing a small project as doing an absolutely massive one. So you might as well do a massive one and be awesome, is my approach to things, really.
Wow, I love your ambition.
Well, these things everything's possible in all possible worlds, but it's just, well, I was just thinking about it and thinking about the land that we've got round here and the different kinds of environments that we've got around here, not just in Otley, but kind of spreading out, into Leeds, down like, the A65 down that suburban corridor, and linking up with places like Hollybush and Kirkstall that have got quite a bit going on, and then going kind of further north into the moors and the dales properly, and then all the kind of urban environments in between. And I know Seacroft really well. I used to teach in Seacroft for a long time, and and if you get people there, they will do it. If you invest in them, they come back. I don't know if Slunglow are involved, if Alan's involved from Slunglow in Beeston, but if he's not, you need him to be.
He will be, and he's kind of in Holbeck, but I think they're jumping over the boundary.
Yeah.
Get involved as well.
He's awesome. He's got a brilliant mind.
So thank you very much, Andrea. What about you, Rachel and Graham? What were you thinking? What were your reasons for saying yes to this invitation?
We were saying we're quite new to Otley, and we'd been seeing the signs around, which is how we found out about it. And we've been trying to make more sustainable kind of decisions at home, just kind of looking like our future. And we want to kind of take that to the next step and look on like a bigger scale. That's why we're looking at more of the scale of Otley rather than just at home now. So yeah, that's us.
Thank you. So this next bit is, let me just see. This next bit is kind of like an opportunity just to spend 5 minutes on, was I going to hand over to Andrew? Yes, I was going to hand over to Andrew. Please, Andrew, you go for it.
Yeah, okay. It was, spending 5 minutes on your kind of vision of what you, let me just bring it up. What do you dream is possible? And if we can grow the good work, which Otley 2030 is already doing. So yeah, just, I think Andrea kind of did it a bit there. You were kind of dreaming and showing us your ambition, but yeah, if you could choose a vision for 2030, what would it be? What would be the ideal place for you? Because you can be as macro or as micro as you want. Just pick one thing. Could be transport related, or you can try and do a bit of your overall view for the town or whatever. Just pick something, and we're going to go in groups again, Phil. Or?
Yeah, and the purpose for this conversation is to start to get a feeling for what people are really interested in, you know, and that might help steer towards which working group you might like to get involved in to start off with. So if you're really interested in Library of Things, then perhaps your vision is just that people are, you know, sharing more things than buying in the space of the next 5 years. And, you know, being able to articulate that and flesh it out might mean that there's the grounds for Otley 2030 to support some kind of a working group around it. Maybe that could be a place for involvement or support for the Library of Things. If you want to, you know, have a biosphere, perhaps, then Andrea, you could get involved with the Otley Nature Network and see if that could be coalesced into some kind of project to, you know, get certified as a UNESCO biosphere. Who knows? So there are lots of different opportunities, and this conversation, like Andrea said, and I put the question in the chat, but it's really just to get into that. What inspires you? You know, what would you love to spend a few hours a week, perhaps working on from time to time, that might support the objectives of Otley 2030 and also put some of the skills that you have to great use. So yeah, I think small groups again, Andrea, is good.
All right, great. We'll put you in there for 5 minutes again. And we'll come back.
Perfect.
25, 26.
Perfect.
I'll join one this time as well.
Okay, nice. Do you want me to stay out here?
No, you can jump into one.
Should we do? Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Hi, everybody. So, do we have Andrew back?
Yeah.
Hi, Andrew. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but we had a great conversation in our small group with Andrea and Sue, and really quite inspiring just to listen. And it gave me a helpful focus that to remind the whole group that what we're inviting here is 2 different levels of participation. So folks who might like to participate in a working group and show up and volunteer, and also folks who might like to give a little bit more time to help to steer a group, to kind of manage a group and keep a group on track. And to give that some context, you wouldn't be left on your own to manage a group. We would give you some support because we're going to offer once a month kind of meetings to do the foundation skills and what it means to be a group manager. So if you wanted to take part by helping to manage a group, we're going to do 4 sessions, 1 a month. When are the sessions, Andrew? They're in July and then September, October, November. Is that right? You're on mute.
Sorry, the first one is June the 30th.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Second one, July 28th or 25th of August. We gave people two options for that because it's the middle of the summer holidays, so people might be away. Then one September 27th and the last one 27th of October. That's
right. Yeah. So be a kind of steady, it'd be an opportunity to get together with other people who were helping to lead a working group. So you could share what you're learning and share any kind of teething problems, get a bit of support from the other group leaders, and just, you know, talk about how you're engaging with volunteers and the kind of projects you're working on, and do a little bit of getting to understand the ways of working with Otley 2030. So it'd be a supported, not like a super loads of time commitment thing, but a relationship where it was supportive and it had a kind of heartbeat, so you wouldn't be left on your own. You could check in once a month or so up until October. And then in October, we'd review how that had gone and see how useful it had been, and see if it was something worth carrying on. If there was a different structure that would be helpful, like perhaps once every 6 weeks or something like that. So it would be a supported relationship where you'd be gently welcomed into the role of helping to manage a working group. And like we said before, you probably wouldn't do it on your own. You'd probably be working in a team with another person who would be your kind of co-leader of that working group. And then working with you would be participants who would be members of that working group. So, welcome back, Sue. Welcome back, Sue. So with that in mind, with it in mind that there are 2 different levels of participation, maybe people would be able to open their microphones and say, either are you interested to get involved as a participant and perhaps join a working group, or are you interested in getting a bit more involved and helping to lead a working group? And then what could be your top kind of couple of interests? Does that sound helpful? And I'll write them down so we've got a kind of record. Or Andrew, do you have that document with the people and the kind of things that they're interested in? Open.
I do, yeah, I've got it ready.
Yeah, okay, so maybe you can, I'll write the kind of ad hoc notes and you can record those specific kind of pointers. That'd be cool.
The other thing we should say about these meetings as well is, depending on the prevailing pandemic situation, they may or may not be face-to-face. We will always have to just sit here across Zoom, so it would be nice to meet everybody face-to-face if that's possible.
Yeah, and also, you know, thinking about accessibility, it might be that it's more convenient for some people to meet online and other people to meet in person. So we could do a kind of hybrid format if that's more accessible for folks, you know what I mean? So very happy to be flexible whenever we're working to make sure that everybody can participate. And we said in the invitation that if there are any specific access needs, then Andrea and I are really happy to help work together to meet those access needs as best as we're able. So yeah, really a real passion for helping people be able to get involved in the way that's meaningful and useful for you, and also help support the work that Otley 2030 is trying to do to decarbonize. So yeah, maybe folks could just open the microphone and say, are you interested to maybe help lead a group, or would you like to participate? And what are the kind of couple of things that you're most interested in?
Shall I go? I'm wanting to participate to start with.
Yeah.
And I think the things that I'm most interested in are the nature, the gardening project. I like the sound of the encouraging wildlife and sustainable gardens. And I don't know if this Library of Things is part of it, but I really do like the idea of the Library of Things.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Thank you. And don't wait for permission, just jump on and speak up.
Okay.
Go on, Andrew, after you.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I'll be prepared to lead a working group. I've got a lot of experience managing things, and I'm quite interested in how these things interact across the board. Do you know what I mean? How they all relate to each other. And I'm also interested, I've got a strong background in education. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in young people leading things, and I'm interested in nature and housing and sustainable fashion, using our very precious cloth and local things well. So yeah, I'm kind of quite flexible really about what I'd be involved in. I'm happy to do any of those.
Thank you so much, Andrea. John, were you going to speak?
Yeah, I mean, the Library of Things idea is something that I'm progressing anyway. I think it makes a lot of sense where, you know, to try and make use of, you know, people that are willing to be involved, and also the wider work that Otley 2030 is doing to have that as part of wherever it falls under whichever relevant work stream. I'd be more than happy to run with that. And, you know, if there's wider goals as part of that work stream, certainly I'd be involved in helping to support that as well.
So John, do you mean by saying that you might be interested to incorporate the Library of Things as a working group, which Otley 2030 could invite people into?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Andrew and I have spoken before this call about that as an idea, albeit there's been other things that have prevented that from happening as soon as we both would have liked, probably. But yeah, I think that would certainly be something I'd be keen to do.
Brilliant, nice one. And within the structure of the working groups, kind of having two people helping to steer them, would you be interested in working with someone else to help drive it forwards?
Makes sense, yeah. Wherever there's help,
Nice
then
one.
yeah, more hands make light work.
Fab, thank you so much. Did I hear some other voices? Was Rachel going to speak?
We were just discussing which ones we were interested in. So we're interested in the food, nature and transport kind of aspects.
And was that to participate, or would you like to support?
Participate.
You would like to participate? Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And Andrew, I've not kind of got that out of the chat there. Is there something I should read? Hang on a sec.
No, it's just Rachel asked what the groups were again.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so we're just putting them in the chat, but the groups can be, they're not limited to that. You can kind of almost set up your own group. Like I had a good meeting with a group of people from Otley Welcomes on a Monday night, and they want to kind of come in and be like the social justice angle of climate change and engage and come under the Otley 2030 umbrella. So that was something that we kind of were working on in the background with the tribe in Brazil, but having one group who would be focused on that would be amazing. So if people have got ideas for groups they would like to start, it doesn't have to be limited to what we've already got.
Brilliant, thank you. And then I think Michelle and Sue.
Yeah, so I'm particularly interested in like waste reduction as the crisp packets for recycling, but also looking at schools and education within schools. I was chatting to John about it in terms of, I know you're already talking about an actual education of a teacher in the school that will be trained on sustainability, but how far does it go? Do you look at waste streams within the schools and how we can reduce them? Otley is unique. We've got like Nana did. Can we start schools, even field trips out to like Nana did, to refill containers and look at things like that? I'm sort of in touch with Westgate Primary School already, as my daughter started there, and it's something I want to do.
And would that be would that be as a participant, or would you be interested in helping to lead a group around that?
Yeah, I don't know what you would call the group, but I would go on and I'll potentially lead a group.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, like nobody's getting a pair of golden handcuffs in the post. Okay, so this is the start of a conversation.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in leading a group, then this gives the foundation for a next step conversation to see what that could involve. You know what I mean? So between now and the 30th of June, Andrew or I, or possibly both of us, will be in touch with you to have a chat and see what could it involve, how could it be structured so it's sustainable for you, and also so it grows steadily rather than booming and then just collapsing because there's too much done at the start. So it's all about sustainability here and helping something really get off to a good start. So yeah, this is just an indication for what further conversations start to happen between now and the 30th of June. Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. And what about you, Sue?
I think I'm interested the environment. I muted now. No. I like what Andrew is saying very much about the environment and nature and that kind of thing. That would be good. I'd also like to be involved in anything that was to do with recycling, because I think we've had initiatives, haven't we, in Otley about showing, for example, showing Sainsbury's how much plastic they use and so on, but we haven't really got anywhere. And I think now with COVID, we've got more rubbish and we've forgotten about things like that. So I'd be quite interested to do something like that as a participant, I think, to start with. But
thank you. And you'd like to participate in a group to start with and then see where that goes. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so fab. Thank you so much, everybody. This is a really great starting point for the next step conversation. And I'm going to hand back to Andrew just to, I suppose, tell us, Andrew, is there any more information that you need at this point in time to kind of drive us into the next steps? You know what I mean? So I think what the next steps feel like they could be is we'll get in touch with the people who were interested in leading a group for us for individual conversations, you know, so we can see what that could involve. And maybe we could do like a half-hour, 45-minute call just so we can see where that could start, where it could go, and what some of the steps could be. So it felt sustainable and it didn't feel like you were going to be rushed off your feet and it wasn't sustainable with what your lifestyle pattern is right now. And so, you know, it would feel meaningful and sustainable for you. And then for the people who were interested in being involved in a group, I suppose we can feed you into a group if it's already operating. And if it's not already operating, we can feed you in as soon as it is operating, you know? But Andrew, that's just me making rash assumptions, and please jump over and yeah.
No, very correct assumptions. Just reiterate everything you'd said there. And we've got all your contact details, so we'll probably send you a bit more information about what Otley 2030 is and a few useful documents that might just give you a bit of an idea of things and how it's structured. So you know what's happening, and we'll send you an invite to the meeting on the 30th. I think we definitely will do that one on Zoom, and then we'll talk about the future ones, whether they'll be on Zoom or face to face,
or that hybrid format, to see if that helps people participate. Yeah, happy to do that.
But yeah, there might be more people. Please feel free, if you know other people who might be interested, we'll share the video, we'll put it on our YouTube channel and our social media channels. I'll send it out to you guys as well. So if you've got any friends who might also be interested in getting involved, give them the email address and get them to get in touch.
Yeah, and I think it's probably safe to say that we'd be up for running another one of these kind of info evenings if there are other people who'd like to get involved, because we really want to give as many opportunities as possible for people to get involved. So please let people know. And Andrew's email address is otley2030@gmail.com.
Hello.
Or hello@otley2030. That's it. Yeah.
It's the one you received the invite from yesterday for this. So you all.
And yeah, we're doing all the comms through there, so it all stays in the same place. And yeah, we'd love to hear from folks. We'd love to hear from people who'd like to get involved. And things are going to start to happen more and more as we move out of lockdown. And we'd love to have a summer of doing good work and telling good stories and really getting people inspired. So thank you so much for turning up this evening. Maybe just, I don't know, one word in the chat to say how you're feeling about the whole thing would be nice. If you want to just put one word in the chat to kind of sum up what you're feeling about this process that we're doing, or this project of involving people. And then we can open our microphones and say goodbye and close the meeting. Sorry we're 10 minutes late, but it's been really nice to chat to everybody.
Just one more thing. I put in the chat earlier on a picture for the Bio Blitz, 26th of June, east of Otley. There'll be a Bio Blitz with Otley Nature Network, where we'll be going around recording all the species that are there, the flora and fauna. So if anybody's interested in nature, 10 o'clock down at the Irish Fields, down there, 26th of June. I think it'd be a great day. Loads of really talented ecologists are going to be there, telling you about all the stuff that's going on down there.
And you've just reminded me of one other piece of kind of community news that I've got, which is there's an opportunity for people who are involved with these different community hubs as part of the Climate Action Leeds project to visit Bedford Fields Community Garden in Leeds on the 25th, Friday the 25th of June. And that's from 1 till 3. And they're going to have a walk and a talk around Bedford Fields. And I've put the link to the website in the chat if you want to check it out. And you're welcome to join that. So you can just show up there at 1 o'clock on Friday the 25th and say that you're involved with the Climate Action Leeds project and you would like to have a look around the Bedford Fields Garden, and you'll get a kind of a tour and a talk and see what they're doing. It's like a community run urban forest garden in Leeds. It's very interesting. It's nice.
It's amazing. Yeah, I recommend it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And with that, maybe wishing everybody a good evening, eh?
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you all.
Good to meet you all.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.
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 Bye.